Hello, my name is Lesley Ito. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm sitting right now in front of my school library at Big Bow English Lab. You can see a bit over here, some of the graded readers, a lot of graded readers, and all of the ones on the wall behind me, not the art books at the top. Okay, so let's get going. Okay, so building a successful Eikaiwa school ER library. So this is my school, Big Bow English Lab in Nagoya, Japan. My school only focuses on children. Our youngest student is 4 years old, oldest is the second year of high school. And I have a very strong focus on literacy. And also we teach a lot of CLIL lessons. Probably about half of my students could be sort of in a loose returnee category. I have about 100 students in my school and over 1,300 books in the school library. Okay, and here you can see a short video of the children when they're able to, during library time, which is we have a short break in the middle of classes, and they're able to choose the books that they want to borrow. Okay, so for starting a school library, I pretty much identified that for, talking with a lot of school owners, a lot of the subscribers to my LIXON Library, library management system, it seems that for most people, there are, three obstacles that have to be overcome, which are lack of space. This is Japan. Having a small budget. Schools don't really have the budget that a lot of people seem to think that we have. It's sometimes difficult to figure out how to how to finance such a library. And of course, parental cooperation. When you have, children, of course, you have to deal with their parents. And sometimes parents don't exactly really understand what extensive reading is about, or even the benefits of doing so at all. So first, let's talk about lack of space. So I don't really have such a huge space in my school. However, I've found some ways, to go around that. Of course, you saw when I showed the video, I have bookcases that are sort of, in a flat closet. I found these wonderful shelves on Rakuten, which not only are they space savers, they also can display the covers so people can very, very easily choose the books that they want to borrow. I probably have about 100 or so books in a box right now. Sometimes I rotate books just to keep things fresh. And also here's just a magazine rack. Also on the magazine rack, you can see some student created materials that I'll talk about later. Small budget, of course, this is a very, difficult thing to overcome. For most of the books that I have in my library, either I sometimes I've actually gotten some books from from different people. They had a small ER library, were no longer using it, usually on the university level, and they gave it to me. And I was thrilled to be able to have the books. I purchased a lot of books, mostly out of the yearly fee. And, of course, then some of the materials are student-made materials. But for books, sometimes people, they just have this idea that they have to start from this. What you're looking at behind me, this is like more than 20 years worth of work, slowly accumulating all of these books, slowly purchasing books. And, you want to make a really smart purchases. You're not saving money if you buy something and then nobody borrows it, nobody wants to read it. It's really best to invest in a series that students will like. This will get your library off to the best start. And here I have, two series here, the Foundations series, which is really, really popular from older elementary, which surprised me because usually this is sort of more junior high school. Older elementary to high school, they love these books. They're very accessible. They're a great way to start with extensive reading. And of course, good old faithful Oxford Reading Tree. the kids just really love these books. They've really stood the test of time. And also this Oxford Reading Tree is very sturdy. I've had some of my books for a really long time. They get borrowed all the time and they're still in good shape. Like I said, books that are very appealing and read by students are a good investment. Really think about your students. What do they like? What level are they at? Talk to your representatives, talk to the book publisher representatives. They can really give you some good advice and get you off on the right foot. Of course, especially if you have, children in your school. Most children in an Eikaiwa program are beginner readers. If students cannot read on their own, they need someone to read to them, which means audio. And beginners really need to have audio. Now, for a long time, this was very easy because, audio meant CDs, and you were legally allowed to, borrow. You were legally allowed to make a copy of the original of a CD and have the copy, as long as you're not using both. So that's completely legal to do so. And I highly recommend it because sometimes I've had some kids and they're like, Sensei, the CD didn't work. And I'm like, oh, really? Why? And then they showed me the two pieces, the CD snapped in half. I'm like, well, yeah, that's probably why it didn't work. So if that's so, well, no big deal, then you can just make another copy. So you never ever want to lend out your original unless, you don't really mind. But of course, as CDs become more and more obsolete, I've heard from a lot of LIXON Library subscribers say, some of my students, they don't even have a CD player at home. This is sort of a bit of a messy transition. Now we're sort of getting into, the post-CD life with the audio. And this is just really what if there are any publishers out there listening to me right now, what teachers really want to see is something like this. Really, shout out to Usborne English Readers for having QR codes on the back. It is so super easy to access the audio. There are some, some publishers where they have the audio for, published materials. So for purchased materials, oh, you can access the audio on the website. But the website is not really very intuitive, especially if you are not a native speaker of English. Certainly a beginner level English student who is a child cannot navigate that website to download the audio. So there really needs to be sort of a way for it needs to be a lot easier for children to access the audio on their own. There have been some school owners I know who have reached out to publishers and said, hey, we're having this problem. Would it be possible for us, since we already purchased everything, is it possible for us to host the audio, on our own system, like maybe, password protected Padlet or something like that? And they were told that no, that they would not be able to grant that permission. This is a problem that's only going to become a bigger problem in the future, and something that I really hope that publishers will pay attention to, because graded readers with audio is really very important to teachers of young learners if they want to have an ER library. Okay, so oops, my thing is covering up my slide. Okay, I know that there might be some people viewing, who, maybe, I don't know, from another country, or, in a program where they don't really have any budget whatsoever. And they're wanting to know, well, how can I start a graded reading library without, any budget whatsoever? If this is your case, I really highly recommend watching Rob Waring's YouTube video, How to Do ER with No Money and Few Resources. A very excellent presentation, lots of ideas there. Also, some teachers I know, they had said, freegradedreaders.com is also another option. However, as I said here, remember, free doesn't mean good. If you make all of this effort to have these free materials and you give them to your students and they go, "Oh, I don't really like it very much." Well, then your program's not going to be successful. I really think it's really just best find a way to finance a way to buy a series that you know your students will like. Having a series of graded readers that students actually read, there's a lot of value in that. Also, another way is student-created readers. Student-created readers is something that I've done a little bit here and there, and that's just a really great way. You have a book, and then the students make their own version of the book, and then have students borrow the book and read those. And that's been very let's see. This is something that Katie Mutterkato of Groove and Grizzly English School did. I got the idea from her, actually. So as you know, everybody knows the book Pete the Cat. So she made her own version of Pete the Cat, and then the kids colored it in and came up, with Pete stepping in different things in different colors. So here we have Pete stepped in a pile of grapes, which turned his sneakers purple, or he stepped in a big pile of tomatoes, which turned his sneakers red. And then she took it one step further and she put a barcode on the back so that with the library system, the kids could borrow the book, and they were borrowed a lot. I decided to do the same thing. As some of you know, I wrote some graded readers for Autonomy ebooks. And so I decided to make Multipath readers. So we read the Autonomy ebooks all together. Actually, let me just grab that one real quick. I have a class set of Tornado Alley. So we all read this one together so they could have an idea of, what a graded reader, what a Multipath graded reader was like. And then we had a template and they worked in groups and they made a shorter version of this. So these had 8 different endings that were possible. These had 4 different endings, and the students got together in groups and came up with an idea, came up with the endings in the beginning, and then they divided it up, like, you write this page, okay, I'll write this page, and put them together. Then I put a barcode on the back. And so we were able to put it into the system, and then they can borrow them. If you look on this the magazine rack I showed at the beginning, as you can see there, it's been a year. The books are still in great shape. They get borrowed all the time. The kids love them. The younger students are like, I want to do that too. So we're going to be doing that in some other classes. It was a really, really big hit, and it caused the students to have a lot of enthusiasm, about reading, about, the books that the older students had created for them, about, some of the students, got interested in these, and, in the actual Multipath readers that were on the library shelves. So it really, really created a lot of excitement in the library, and that's key, getting the students excited. Parental cooperation. This is a biggie. There's no real magic bullet. There's no magic way to make the parents understand. It's really important to explain what extensive reading is, that you do not have to translate the book. You don't have to translate the reader that the kid brings home. Just have them listen and follow along with the story, or read as much as they can, and getting used to books. The idea, of course, is the kids, they, discover their own taste in books. Very, very important. Don't let parents choose books for their children. Do not, because they're going to choose what they think the kids should read rather than what the kids actually like. This is going to, of course, cause the students to be demotivated. And also asking parents to be autonomy supportive. I did a lot of original research, action research on motivation and creating a motivating environment where students will want to borrow books. And for younger learners, autonomy, being able to have the freedom to choose what you want to read, was extremely important to the children. So really ask the parents to try to be, hands off. And after a while, they will see when there's children are enthusiastic about books, when, they see the child reading at home, that's powerful, seeing them reading at home. Then they'll understand what you're trying to do. All right, so you have a library. Now what? So a lot of people ask, well, how can I motivate my students to read? Really, this is the wrong question that you should, that's really the wrong question. The question that you really should be asking is, how can I create an environment where students will be motivated to read? This is part of self-determination theory. The idea that external motivation is not ideal. Ideally, you want to have internal motivation. Especially with an Eikaiwa school, we don't have grades. So there's no, oh, you have to read or you're going to fail the class. We don't have that in Eikaiwa. If you want an Eikaiwa school library, extensive reading library to be successful, you have to create internal motivation to read. And by doing so, you have to create the environment where the kids will want to do it. So like I said before, students really want to feel like they have autonomy, a feeling of being in control and having choice. As part of my research, I asked the students for comments on that. And one returnee boy wrote very forcefully, just stay and I'll do the read and choose. A lot of the comments were pretty much along those lines. So if you have, once you put the books on the shelves, it's not like, Cinderella magic, ooh, all the kids will just love to borrow all the books. It doesn't really work that way. You really have to help them get started. But like I said, they also want autonomy. So if you directly recommend books to kids, that's demotivating. So how do you do it? How do you recommend it to the kids, but still respect and support their autonomy? I found the best way to do so was through indirect recommendation, which not only indirect recommendation is effective, it's also very, very easy to implement. So I did this through a technique that I came up with called teacher read-alouds. So teacher read-alouds was, I would take a book from a series and I would read it to the kids in, a very, very dramatic way, drawing their interest into the book. And, or, if it's a chapter book, it's a longer book than I read like the first chapter, okay, you're gonna have to read this if you want to find out what happens next. Then I put out all of the books onto, the desk right before library, time and said, okay, here are the books. And then that's all I do for the rest. Then I'm hands off from there. And if it's an appealing series, and if you were able to get the kids excited about the book, probably most of them will be borrowed. Like I said, it doesn't work if the books aren't appealing. You just can't sell it like that. So really, for an extensive reading library to work, like I said, young learners must have easy access to appealing books at their level. You must create the library and divide it into sections. So it is easy for kids to find the books that they like. And it is easy to check the books out. This is, I had a library, I had the kids, interested in the library, but I sort of didn't have what I realized was kind of the missing puzzle piece for creating a motivating environment. Let me tell you a little bit of story about this book. The title is Fur. This book was extremely popular with a bunch of boys. I just kind of couldn't figure it out. Now, back then, for checking out books from the library, we had a little notebook, and the kids would write their name, and then they would write the title of the book and, and the date that they borrowed it. And, that worked fine. And why is this book so popular? Well, then I overheard the kids. It wasn't because they were interested in animals. It wasn't because they liked the picture of the scary wolf. It was, hey, the title of this book is so short. All you have to do is write FUR, and then you're finished with borrowing books. This is not what I wanted. No. So it had been a dream of mine for a long time to have a very easy to use library system where I could have a barcode scanner and the kids could just, beep, 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 and, check out the books that they wanted. So this was my solution, was LIXON Library. Because especially on for beginner readers, for children, really, what should they be reading? They should be reading lots of really short books. And, if you have, a book like this, Granny Fix-It and the Ball, if you have a notebook, by the time a first grader writes Granny Fix-It and the Ball, your library time might actually be over. Whereas if it's a barcode scanner, they can borrow, about 5 or so books very, very quickly, in less than a minute. So we decided we made LIXON Library. Actually, at the beginning, we just made it for ourselves. And we were just blown away with how excited the kids suddenly, it just brought a breath of fresh air into our library. So then from there, we decided to make it available to other schools by subscription service. So LIXON Library, but as you can see here, there's no LIXON Library. When we made this system, we made it so that you can put your own school's logo here. So you can brand it for your own school. So as you can see on the actual LIXON Library pages, you can see the name of my school, which is Big Bow English Lab. Okay, I don't know if you were excited as I was when I was a kid to get my own library card. I was so excited. I felt so grown up having my own library card and checking out the books that I wanted. And kids are that way. And when they get their own library card, here's Lawrence Hong's school, so American English School, AES. And his kids were so excited to get their library cards. It's like ownership. Once they get that card, they want to use it. They want to borrow books. And you don't really need so much equipment to get this started. All you need is, like a Padlet with a Bluetooth scanner, or, a laptop with, sort of the supermarket claw kind of scanner with a cord. We started off using, like a tablet with a Bluetooth scanner. Now we've kind of gone, instead we use like a computer and, plug in with we use a laptop that we weren't currently really using anymore, and just use the supermarket scanner because the Bluetooth scanner goes to sleep. So if the kids are borrowing it for themselves, and sometimes it's just a little bit fiddly to try to wake up the Bluetooth scanner again. Because LIXON Library is cloud-based, you can have, as many devices going on in one school, or, in multiple schools even. So this, you don't really need much to get started. And here are the kids, they're scanning their card, and then they can scan the book. And if they want to borrow multiple books, well, they just have to scan their card once, and then they can scan as many books. And then the next kid comes and scans their card and scans as many books. And it's just, I'll talk about it more at the end. Okay. Also, we expanded LIXON Library. So now, because all the kids are in the system as, borrowers of the library, we decided to you can also do attendance. So it can take attendance. And you also have another thing too, where, it will integrate with Line. So the parents can look up, if they want to see, what their child is currently borrowed, and also they can look up to see if their child has arrived in class. We have since expanded that to, we can integrate LIXON Library with your school's business line account. And you don't have to do attendance. You can just have where the parents can get the announcements. So as you can see, you can have this in either English or Japanese, whatever, we want to send out to the parents. So the Linebot, when the kids scan their card, when they come to school, the Linebot will send a message. And then when they leave the school, scan it again, and it will send a Linebot message to the parents, so they can receive notifications for when their children arrive and leave at the school. I know, this is becoming more and more of a feature that a lot of schools really like to have for, for peace of mind and also for safety. Okay, and so this is, LIXON Education. So this is the website. So LIXONeducation.com. So now, since I've come to the end of my PowerPoint and I have a little bit of time to talk, yeah, so just talk a little bit about it. One other benefit about LIXON Library, when the assistant teacher, who is now our technical director, and he is in Australia, when he made this for me, I said, please do not make something that I have to, create a database and everything before, because with putting all the books in, I know I'll never get around to it. I'm busy. I'm just never going to get around to it. And so one thing that's really great about LIXON Library is, of course, the students you have to put in to the system, but for the books, all you do is you scan the ISBN number here, and the system will go to available databases on the internet and find your book and then put that into the database. So you don't have to start, you can just set it up and start immediately, and it will build as you go. If you want to put in all the books from the get-go, you can do that too. So that's just something that was a really, great time saver for me. And I got started doing it. It was very, very easy to do so. So that's one of the big benefits of that. Also, I found it's been really wonderful for me when it's time for me to have, conferences with the parents, because I can look up, at a glance and see what the children have been reading all year. And so that's really great for me, when I have to talk to the parents about how, their children have been doing. Also, like another thing that I found, it helps me to make sort of, adjustments. I can look up and see, at a glance, which books are the most popular. I can see which books haven't been returned yet. For, my school, sometimes I get questions from teachers. Well, what should I do if a student damages a book or something like that? Well, or they lose a book. Well, I mean, you don't really want to, lose a student over a book. I mean, you just don't want to do that. So sometimes you're just going to have to let it go. However, I have noticed that like every couple of months, I just go to the return books function and I print it out. I print out, up until like a month. So if it's like, if I were to do that today, probably I would see all of the books that haven't been returned by the end of April. So I have that list and I take a look at the list. And for some of the kids, just a very, very gentle reminder to the kids, hey, you've had this book out, maybe you want to bring it back. Most of the books are returned. We very, very rarely have a student who doesn't return a book. So that's been one great thing for a system for the library. So a very, very big benefit of the library. Another thing, a while ago, like I really am a very big fan of, graphic novels, and graphic novels are really important, I think. But I noticed when I put in one of the series, a very, very popular series of graphic novel, into the library system, the kids were just borrowing it so much. And sometimes the kids were only borrowing, the graphic novels. So after taking a look at the student borrowing data, I'm like, I need to make a little adjustment. So I took out very, without saying anything, just very, very slowly took them all out of the library. And I kept them out for 2 months. And then I slowly introduced them back into the library. And once I did that, then that took care of the problem. Now the kids are borrowing a variety of books and not just borrowing graphic novels. So if you have that kind of data, if you have that kind of information, then you're allowed to make these really, really informed choices that are going to really, benefit your library and, and create the program that you want to have. So thank you very much for listening today. And I hope that you've been able to get some information. I guess, because this is pre-recorded, unfortunately, I'm not able to answer any questions you might have. However, David Paul has said that on the Facebook group that there will be, time for people can put a lot of questions in. I make a lot of, presentations about graded reading and about extensive reading and about graded reading libraries. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact me. Either maybe I can answer your question directly, or maybe I can give you a link to a video that I've made, which will answer that question. But I really, really highly recommend to have an extensive reading in your library. Have extensive reading library in your school, because a once-a-week lesson is just not enough. And there's so much evidence out there about how, reading, especially the graded readers, which, are very accessible language for the children. They're able to, it's a lot of things that they've learned. It's a great review of that. Having them do this week after week after week after week has a really great effect, not only on their reading ability, but also on their grammar knowledge, their vocabulary knowledge. There are so many benefits. It's really a very enjoyable way for students to improve in all areas. Okay, well, thank you very much.